Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Rod Gantos on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Rod Gantos.
I think we're changing the title from Journey to Quest for the show.
Quest?
Yes.
Ooh, that has a different sort of searching quality.
Put your shield down and your sword. And,
well, I'll tell you what, my quest is to look half as good as half of the people in this room here. I'm telling you, this is a good-looking crowd here today.
You're pretty snappy over there.
I am.
If I could just figure out whether those companies still exist or not that are in your shirt, I mean, you know.
Well, you have all this fashion people, and in my fashion sense,
know,
I go get free T-shirts from people I did work for, and I wear them forever here.
So actually, truth in advertising, which seems kind of funny given the people that are on the show today,
Yeah.
but truth in advertising, Paul is not very far from the truth here that he's sharing, because we got accosted by my co-host from the Check Out California show, Craig Sullivan, a few minutes ago, who was waiting for us in ambush in the studio to pass on a Click 3 T-shirt. Which is the conference that he's doing. Yeah, you know what? Because I don't hear
We'll
this.
get Rachel to model it. She'll look better at modeling it than we will.
They're Irish, so you know, Paul and him will chew me out. So Click 3, check it out. CLIconference.com.
California Lodging Investment Conference.
It's coming up next year. Two years in a row sold out. This is the third year. We're moving it over to the other side of the freeway here off MacArthur.
To the western.
To get to the western, to make it a bigger venue. You don't want to miss out on it if you're in the hospitality business. That being said, we're done with that and talking about clothing. I want to really kind of zero down on this quest thing, okay? This show from day one has been sort of a journey of exploring things that are different, that not shying away from conversations that are hard to have maybe. And as we have continued to live more and more on a daily basis in a world that is over-curated, very packaged, very 8x10 glossy, nobody has a bad photo on Facebook. Just think about it for a minute, okay? We have become a culture that actually must take photos with the angle down. Okay, from a selfie stick. I mean, okay, what happened to the days where, like, I'm just having fun being drunk and somebody snapped a picture of me?
It's over.
Okay,
that's over.
Now, if you have a lot of pictures with wine in your hand or something like that, you must be an influencer in the food and beverage business, right? So this is the world that we live in, and so in the world that we live in that looks like this, some of us are hungry for authenticity. Some of us are hungry for a quest for things that are a little bit more meaningful, a little bit more than just surface sizzle, and a little bit more steak, something to bite into, something to make me feel better the next day, something to, I don't know, hope for better things, grow, mature, you know, socialize is one way of looking at it, commune with people around me, maybe a better term for what I'm talking about.
Well, I think you might also want to say that the statistic right now is people are on social media more than ever, and they feel lonelier than they ever have before. There's a higher frequency of people who are feeling lonely as they're connected through these portals that are not authentic.
Yeah, they're in touch, but they're not really, depth of contact is not there. So this is the world we live in, and in this world, people that are very instrumental, and I'm not picking on you guys because I have a reason for this, right? But people that are instrumental in packaging.
That's the right word.
That lifestyle, packaging the promise of those, the curating of those stories that are sought after, that are good at what they do, that have a flair and a talent for it. Those people are very critical. And I happen to have two people in this room that have made a career in their own journey of doing that kind of stuff, helping people find their own voice, putting it out in a manner that is sustainable, that is branded, if you will. And so across the table from me here is a gentleman by the name of Yves Lasser.
That's so good. I don't even know how that went.
We got an hour. And next to me here is a lady that is known by many locally as the partner and senior vice president at Gigasavvy, which is, what street is it off again?
Sand Canyon and the 5.
Sand Canyon and the
You've
5.
probably passed it as you sat in traffic on the 5 freeway.
It's actually a historical building, right?
Yeah, second oldest commercial real estate building in Orange County.
So that's really kind of a cool juxtaposition, that the number one awarded agency in Orange County is actually resides in the second oldest building in Orange County.
Which was
Serendipity? Oh, everything old is new again?
Yes.
So Rachel Svoboda is here with us as well. And both of them, in their own rights, through their own journey and their own quest, have gotten themselves to this point. Yves is also the executive editor of Nobleman Magazine. Among other things, this is his most recent
It's the most recent quest.
That's
yes.
right. And so we had the chance to have lunch, and we had a chance to talk about a lot of this stuff. And really, I want to hear from both of you about how you found yourself to be where you are today. Is this something that was a clear quest from day one? Was this a journey of exploration and discovery that you were open to certain things? And so how does a man born in France, raised in French-Canadian Quebec,
Right.
it doesn't get more French-Canadian than Quebec,
It really doesn't.
right? And I'm going to hear from my family that are up there. In the
Except,
middle, right?
you have to say Quebec.
Quebec.
You don't say Quebec.
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 Yeah.
Quebec, actually,
Quebec.
right? Quebec. And then actually ends up in California, and now is executive editor of Nobleman Magazine.
Well, the old saying, and there's no straight road, the road zigs and zags, and I think that's sort of my journey from, being, in Canada and undergrad there, and then here in California, going to UCLA, and really kind of finding the one thing that I knew for sure that I was going to do. I was going to be a creative force of some kind, and the old saying was always that. I sort of kind of knew what my journey would look like when I was a little kid.
Interesting.
And I think that that's sort of true. And now that I look at my life and, being in the young age of almost 55, I find myself looking back more than I look forward, but not in a bad way. I mean, I look back.
You're
because
reflecting?
Yeah, I'm reflecting. I mean, I'm kind of taking the lessons. I mean, we talked at lunch about the fact that my father was my hero and continues to be, even though he's been passed for a number of years now. And I think his values and what I saw as a life really mattered. And I think in the life that we live now and in the place that we live now, I think those values matter even more. So if we make a connection to nobleman, we spend lunch defining what a nobleman was.
And I want to put that out to anybody who's listening. Paul, give the number out, please.
The number is 949. I got a cough here. Hang on. 949-330. 7761 949-330-7761. Operators standing by.
So the question that Yves just basically presented, and I will want to put it out there for everybody, is when you close your eyes and you think of nobleman, and we don't want to be necessarily gender specific, but just that concept of nobility, okay? What do you conjure up in your mind when you think of that? And if you have an answer, call us on that number and share it with us on there.
You know what my image is? Forgotten. Something long since forgotten. Ancient history, nobility, noblesse oblige.
When you close your eyes, Paul, who do you see as a personification of nobleman?
Rad. No.
How much do you pay him for that?
I picture.
The check cleared, I guess.
I picture some vague movie character. Swashbuckling. Errol Flynn type of nobility, a prince, a king, a royalty, but dashing, debonair.
So is it an aspirational character? Or is it an inspirational character?
I'll say this is a very interesting question. Maybe this is more than you want to know, but I think at one time it was an aspiration for all young men growing up. You all wanted to be Cary Grant. You all wanted to be Errol Flynn. You all wanted to be one of these dashing characters. I don't know. I'm 62, so I'm even looking back farther here. I don't see that kind of aspirational characters anymore. What half of these rappers or something here, or half of these rude, crude baseball players or athletes. It's all about me. Look how great I am. I'm the greatest. It's all about bragging. It's all about trashing. It's all about bashing. I don't see that aspirational quality anymore in our
See
stars.
how good he sets things up right there?
There you go. But I think that, there's a blend, I think, of aspiration and inspiration.
Absolutely.
And a character. I mean, we talked about the fact that, that my father was really a pivotal figure in my life. And as I mentioned before, my dad was, we were poor. We were a poor family, struggling every day to make ends meet. But it never occurred to me that he was not a nobleman. He was noble because he showed up every day, and because he got up in the morning to take me to hockey practice. For those of you who are Canadians, you'll understand. He showed up to every voice recital that I had. He showed up to pick up my grades, which, by the way, back then it was a requirement. Parents had to go and
get the grades.
Your kids' grade. If not, you didn't get your grades.
Bring that idea back.
So yeah, that's one of those ideas that I think has merit. But he showed up, and so does my mother, by the way. She was truly a Spartaner, in kind of an old-fashioned sort of way. My dad truly led our family, but not in a way that you would think like my mom had nothing to say. Trust me when I say that when my mom said something, people listened.
Anybody who knows what traditional family structures is knows who wears the pants.
I think so, but he did it in a way that was gentle and respectful, and I think those qualities that I've tried my whole life to emulate now that I'm a parent myself, I think they don't change. So whether or not those characters are from the 30s, the 40s, or old movie stars, or people from the present, I think that without getting into political exchange. We looked at what Barack Obama was as a president, regardless of your political affiliations. This man had character that was noble. He tried to do the right thing. Whether or not you agreed with him, I think that essentially he tried to do the right thing by his family and by his fellow men. In exchange, if you look at the political situation now, if you look at Donald Trump, regardless of whether or not you like the guy, I may not like the guy, but I have utmost respect for the office of the presidency. I'm sure that at his home with his kids, he probably is a decent guy that tries to do the right thing by his family. So I think that essence, I think we all have. I think we're all noble in certain ways. And whether or not that gets taken out of us for circumstances or what happens in life, what happens in your career, I think that sort of kind of changes. But I think there's nobility in every man or woman for that matter.
Can I ask you a question, though? Nobility to me also implies there's a certain dash and a certain debonair, all those words I don't hear much anymore, but it also has a certain humility to it. I think Obama had a very strong humility to it. I think the celebrities today, and certainly our president's one, certainly the reality stars that we see on TV, most of the athletes I know, that's all gone. It's about how loud can I brag and boast and put down others. It's a different quality.
Is it because we allowed it?
No, I
As
think
an
it's a chicken or
audience,
the egg for sure.
I think that there's a little bit of that.
Absolutely, and I think there's also a desire for sensationalized content, and so if something is not sensationalized, it doesn't get airtime.
Right.
Okay, if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. Right, and there's an aspect of that unfortunately is true, and we live in a very fast-paced, instant gratification, positive gratification or negative stimulation, one way or the other. Right? But that's how we live, because I'm moving on to the next one. What you are talking about, and we talked about this at lunch, is that Paul's image of what is nobility is trapped into this sort of silver screen, kind of maybe little trappings of visuals. That's fine. The thing that's interesting about it is, even in those cases, even if you were a literature reader, even if you're looking at the story of everything from Alexander Dumas the Three Musketeers to Don Quixote, okay, and the initial part of the quest is all the glossy. It's all the shiny armor. It's all the, there's no dings in anything. The horse's hair is perfectly flowing in the wind, and the sun is parting through the clouds, almost like the hand of God touching somebody's shoulder, right? And then you all get sucked into it, and everybody's watching. But that's not when it really is most meaningful. The most meaningful is when somebody is charging the windmills, and the clouds are dark, and he's seeing delusional giants, or against all odds, all for one and one for all, and there's like 15 times the people attacking or challenged by different things, and it's wit and it's whatever. The thing that's interesting is we somehow have lost the ability to put value.
Okay,
that.
I'm going to jump in because that is exactly where I'm going with it. And in true Rachel form, I brought out my notes because I took notes at lunch. I didn't bring my whiteboard, but this will do. So all of the things that you're talking about, whether you're talking about Cary Grant, who I love, or any other, knight of the round table, it's all coming back to values. And you guys were using words at lunch to describe trust and courage and bravery and honesty. I mean, those are all core values. And now I'm going to totally nerd out and go into advertising for a minute, because if you look at the best brands out there, the strongest brands with the most loyal customers, they're values based, and people believe in those brands, and
most sustainable model.
Absolutely. I mean, it becomes a part of who they are. It's part of their identity. That's why, I carry an Apple phone. Or I'm shopping at Starbucks or Nordstrom. It's a part of who I am, because I believe what they believe. And that's what Simon Sinek talks about with his golden circle, and that, really changed the whole way that we...
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
I don't disagree with anything he said, but tell me the values. And I know this is going to be a hard question, and people scream, and it's no secret I'm not a fan of the president.
You're looking for instant gratification and a quick list of values?
No.
I have a worksheet for you. I can bring it in. Yeah.
All right, good. I want to know what the values are of an organization like the Trump Organization. What's the value that you associate? Because people flock to that. They all want to wear the clothes. They all want to go to the hotels. They all want to be associated with the brand. What's the value of that brand if it's not just bragging and I got it and you don't?
I think, if I'm going to jump in for a minute, we talked at lunch about, politics. And it used to be that to be a politician, it was a noble pursuit.
Yeah, right.
Because you were a servant of the people. I think that that's the part that's been forgotten. I think that, nobody runs for office thinking that they're going to be millionaires, because we all know, first of all, those figures are publicly disclosed, so nobody's making a killing there in terms of money. But the minute they get to Washington, then the lobby industry gets a hold of that, and then all of a sudden special interests take part of this. And now this quest, to round it, we want to get back to our quest idea, this quest of really doing something meaningful and noble gets lost quickly in the fact that when you run for office, and if you win, in 8 months you have to run for office again.
Yep.
So that means that now your purpose, however noble that was, or however great value you had, or great intentions, that eventually your job is about raising money
to stay in your seat.
In order to do that, to sustain your seat and to sustain viability as a candidate, then now you have to cut some corners in terms of what you believe in, because that's not what gets you the most money.
Right.
And I think that that's where, we talked a little bit at lunch about this newest politician in New York that just ran for primary for the Democratic Party, who outseated Joe Crowley, who had been there for 10 terms. And she was just, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, 24-year-old, great young woman, Hispanic, lived in the project, all of that stuff. What I'm afraid of is all these good intentions that she has now, by the time she gets to Washington, it's going to be taken away from her. So I think that that's where we run into issues, and that's why people don't want to be politicians.
And yet, isn't it funny, and you said this in reference to yourself a number of times during lunch, but isn't it funny that even in those circumstances, we are sitting there like spectators, still wishing and hoping the ultimate optimism of the fact that she will go to Washington and she will not be changed by the system.
What isn't that Mr. Smith Goes to Washington?
Exactly.
Is that what it is? I mean, that's what it is.
Jimmy Stewart. Now we got another one. Yeah, right.
Right, because you hope and pray. I mean, at lunch, Rachel said, I think I'd like to run.
Yeah.
Well, my next thing out of
Rachel's officially announcing
by
that
the way,
at some point she's running.
She's going to run.
We're not sure.
The announcement was made on the show.
Yeah, watch out.
We're going to run for Congress somewhere in Orange County, but I'm like, when do we get started? But that's what it should be.
Yeah.
When you find the best and the brightest, there's a reason why the best and the brightest go away from politics.
Let me take you back, though, to maybe the core of what I was trying to ask. Maybe Trump is a bad example because it leads to politics. There are a lot of brands today that are not about what I consider to be positive, noble values. Let's say the Real Housewives brand, for example. Very popular show, has expanded greatly. Tons of people watch it. I've watched the darn thing, I admit it. And there is a brand built around that. Now, what is the brand? The assumption is that all values are noble values, and if you create noble values, people will follow you. I don't disagree with that, but there are also a wave today of people creating what I call unnoble values.
You're on a very slippery slope, though, for more reasons than I could tell you, but you're on a slippery slope for one basic reason.
All right.
You are sitting in moral judgment of what is the values that are worth
Absolutely,
it.
a value
And
of-
in doing so, you are basically behaving in the same manner as people that you basically find issue with for doing exactly the same thing.
I'm sorry.
Values.
I'm sorry.
The values. Sorry, you've been chastised. Sit in the corner now. Okay. But the values.
You're probably right.
The values that you're talking about are not a standardized thing. What we're talking
That's
about
true.
when in terms of nobility, even if you go back to all those examples, they're not all pristine.
But when I grew
There's-
up, there were values that athletes had, and there was an image, a Hollywood-crafted image of what a football star, Bart Starr,
let
Johnny
me-
Unitas, the humble quarterback.
Yeah, but let me jump in. I
Yeah.
don't want to interrupt you, but Mickey Mantle was my father's idol.
Mm-hmm.
Was a drunk, and in front of the cameras, Mickey was the most fantastic, God-fearing, hush shucks, shake hands to all the
Absolutely.
kids. But behind the scenes, Mickey was a wreck, and eventually became a wreck of an older man who died early for all kinds of reasons.
I didn't know that.
But I think that's what when
It's
we
exactly
talk,
what we're talking
That's
about.
what the slippery slope that we're talking about. If we go back to the housewife, and I've got a little bit of a vested interest.
Yeah.
Fair disclosure, I
Yeah.
worked for Doug McLaughlin, and Lydia was on a couple of seasons of The Housewife, and she could not be a lovelier
Person.
human being. But I think when they had the first season, and I'm with you, I watched it too. They have the first season. The idea, the concept behind that is to get a glimpse
Into
of
the thing.
real life. What does it look like when you live beyond the gates and all that? Nobody sort of kind of knew, and that was the first experiment with that. Nobody kind of knew that was going to degenerate into like a he said, she said, and a fight in public restaurants. I think that they had noble intentions because I think everybody starts with that. But then all of a sudden now they find out that the ratings and the advertisers flock to the fact that drama and all that yelling and fighting and all that.
Sensationalized media.
Now that brand is all about that. So
Yeah,
their
right.
value, so to speak, is not the inherent intrinsic value that we love, but there's a value to that brand because it brings a certain audience that just happens to be the people that buy products that you and I sell. So I think that that's really where we're getting into a place where we lose that.
I used to say that all purchases, all acquisitions fall into two stimulants: aspirational or affirmational. Okay?
It's who you are or who you want to
Or
be.
who you want to be.
Yeah.
So here's what's interesting. I don't know. It used to seem that it was at least balanced, or that maybe the affirmational component was a little bit more weighted. It now seems like we have switched the other way.
Oh, I
That
agree.
the aspirational versus the affirmational is the driving force.
Right.
And what we're talking about here is maybe we need to provide alternative medium, and this is what we were talking about Nobleman Magazine and the idea behind it, and I made even reference to the fact that the logo is the simplicity, the egalitarian kind of nature of the font being used. There is the promise of actually bringing us back to an alternative narrative, not the only narrative out there, but just for those who are wanting to resonate with something that is a little bit more meaningful. Where do I go for that these days?
Well,
Because
and-
I'm heart-stretched to find it.
Well, and where is the line between who you want to be and who you are? Because now it's not just about building brands that are companies, but it's about building your personal brand. And where does it stop? Once I've made so many choices about being aspirational, when do I just become that person? When has it changed and I've crossed over into the other threshold?
So here's
Is that 20,000 likes on
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, what is
that how-
what is the benchmark, right?
What's
the
What's
benchmark?
the benchmark? How
20,000
many likes
and
is
two,
it?
actually. They've got them two these days.
Is that what I'm going to
Yeah.
measure my value against? Is
Yeah.
it
How
my
many likes
likes
I have
or
on Facebook?
how many pairs of
Unfortunately-
Louis Vuitton shoes I have or
But unfortunately, we talked a little bit about this at lunch that, everybody looks fantastic on Instagram. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen a whole lot of bad pictures of people or having a bad day.
Well,
Let
there's
me
about
post.
half a dozen filters that I can
Right.
use. So
Yeah.
even
But
when
it-
I look bad, I could basically.
But
filter
it becomes that. I mean, you have, you wouldn't know how many people will call me and say, I have 100,000 followers. Can I be in the magazine? It happens every day.
really?
So I have
Oh, sure.
200,000 followers, and can I be in a magazine? Well, if you don't have any story and you have nothing to say, then I'm happy for you.
You know, there was an article
But-
about influencer fraud that came out last
Oh, it's
week.
terrible.
Oh,
you,
yeah,
you can
read
buy
that.
likes, you can buy views and all that.
Talk about not being honorable.
But that's
or
a new.
noble.
By the way, that's a new economy.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
And
an
it's a serious
absolute-
money
Oh, no,
economy.
no. I mean, the stars that have been made on Facebook and YouTube and all that, we see it. We talk about alternative reality. We see people who have no real record of achievement,
Yes.
but they are huge stars because their capital really is created based on something that we see. We don't know anything about those people, but what we see is enough for us for brands. I mean, we talk about brands now.
Yep.
For brands to literally put their wagon right on that road and say, this is going to be our guy
Yeah.
until something happens. And I mean, you don't have to go very far to know, the Jared from Subway and all those
Yep.
things. When you put your faith in something that you really don't know.
Wasn't that a terrible story, that whole Jared thing? Because I think
God.
many of us did fall for that narrative of this nerdy kind of guy who lost weight, and he seemed like such a nice guy, and he turns out to be such a horrible
Well, because
person.
it's a feel-good story. And
Yeah.
we're all
Yeah.
craving for that,
Yep.
especially in a world that demands it.
Right.
We're all craving for a feel-good story that's going to make us feel good for 5 minutes, not
wa-
for a lifetime.
You
5
wait.
minutes.
Yeah.
You wait and watch if Jared doesn't make a comeback, because the other favorite What's the most favorite pastime in the United States?
Second acts.
Baseball?
Building you up and tearing you down.
Yeah.
Thank you. Exactly. It's not football. It's not baseball. It's building you up, and then you get torn down, and then you have a moment of redemption,
Oh.
and then we build you back up
It's
again.
the comeback.
And
Oh.
The National Enquirer
Going
model.
full
Yeah,
circle
right.
again to
It's-
the quest and the hero.
It's every romantic comedy. Guy gets girl, guy loses girl, guy gets girl back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's the redemption
I mean,
story.
start lining them up. Robert Downey Jr. and on and on and on.
You
And
know,
if you actually successfully have a rebirth and a phoenix rising from the ashes,
People love
oh
it.
my God, we will eat that up. We will brand it. We will package it. We will pitch it.
You know, you're laughing, but 30 years ago, I was an entertainment publicist and handled Johnny Mathis, Anthony Quinn, all these people and stuff, because I always had the fascination with movie stars. And I got to know Cindy Michaels very well, who at the time was the bureau chief for the National Enquirer. And that was the story. And they would come in and say, all right, which one are we doing? Which part of the cycle? And if they caught some dirt on you, you either knew that you had to play ball and play along with it, because otherwise they would tear you down. And then there was a chance, okay, now we did that. Do you want to come in and we'll build you up again here? It was just a constant cycle. Tear them down, build them up, tear them down, build them up.
So how do we maintain, this question goes to both of you, right? Because we said this is not a gender-specific pursuit or core flame, okay, and that is at your center and your soul, right? It is not a gender thing. So how do we navigate? I mean, you guys are sitting right at the at the pristine ivory tower of one side of this equation. How do we maintain our soul in a
Well-
situation like this, and how much responsibility do we have, those of us who are basically either providing an alternative voice and narrative venue or having an ability to touch these brands? How much responsibility do we put on ourselves to help guide that back more to that soul?
You
Well,
go first.
I think we have absolute responsibility, because I think that we're only this quest that we're talking about, and we're talking about authenticity and finding real things that we need to talk about. The one word that got thrown around at lunch was courage.
Mm-hmm.
As I know, as an editor, as a guy who's in the publishing, having authenticity and courage to put stories there that matter, that's where the rubber meets the road.
That may cause uncomfort.
Oh.
They may push someone outside their bubble.
Yeah, because you know what? It just demands you got to grit your teeth a little bit, and you got to sit a little straighter in your chair when you read those things. Ultimately, I think we have a responsibility to say no. And I think that that's where we don't do, it's really easy to say yes. These people want to offer you this much money to be in this kind. Oh, great, that looks fantastic. Here's a perk here that we can get, and it's fantastic. But does it really fit the story we're trying to tell? So if we wrap it around to the whole nobleman concept about who is this person, whether it's a man or a woman, then the courage to say no to people that don't belong there, not because they don't have any money, not because they just don't belong there because they're not telling the real story in an authentic way. I think, but that's our job. It's, as an executive editor, it's my gig to make sure that what's in the content of the book matters, and we tell real stories.
So if you knew what you know now about Mickey Mantle, let's go back in time, Nobleman Magazine 6, and somebody offers you Mickey Mantle for the cover, powerful figure at the time, every kid adored him, I did. Would you, knowing what you know about his real persona, turn that down?
It's a quick no. It's a no.
That takes courage.
Well, but that's it. Because you know what? In the face of advertisers offering you money, and the publicist saying, and it's going to sell covers, by the way. We know that. We got offers, and I'm not going to name names right now, but we got offered real movie stars and celebrities to be on the cover of the book that we know that if we talk about being a nobleman and then those stories come out, we're like, gosh, this doesn't fit.
So I'm going to challenge the no.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Challenge away.
Because I'm DNA wired.
You want to have Mickey Mantle on the cover?
I have some Irish in me, I guess.
I guess so.
Yeah, but no, I want to challenge that. Okay, forget Mickey Mantle. For those who are, the handful that are actually listening to this show, probably don't have
no
a
Mickey Mantle
representative.
anymore.
Rest in peace, Mickey.
Right. So, and it's not the guy with the big ears in Anaheim, people. Okay, all right.
He was on
Get
every
outside the
Wheaties
bubble.
box.
Google something interesting.
Mickey Mantle. He was on the Wheaties box.
Right, but let's just say that it wasn't Mickey Mantle. Let's say it was Robert Downey Jr. And let's say it was Robert Downey Jr. right as he was getting his stuff put together, before Chaplin, but right before when he was putting his stuff together. Obviously, trying to redeem himself, trying to correct his path, maybe not visibly successful at it, but has that. Actually, Chaplin was before all that. But he has that track record of having achieved greatness at point and had fallen, and now is basically in the quest of putting his life back together. It doesn't really have a visual of what that looks like. Would you say yes or no?
That's a little bit more of a challenge, because I think that, just to parallel the whole Mickey story with Robert Downey, Mickey never changed his ways until he pretty much died. I think that I'm a big fan of a redemption story, and whether or not his character now lends itself to be. But this is conversation.
This is a redemption at a moment of redemption,
no.
not completed redemption.
Yeah, and I think it's still, for me anyway, for my own personal thing, it'd still be a no.
It'd still be a no.
It'd still be a no. I think that, if we say that this is the kind of people that we want to put in front of people and saying, this is the example of what a nobleman is. Right. I think that guy didn't fit the model for me.
So I'm just gonna say, for me as a reader, or me, a person who's receiving input, okay. You guys used the word humility.
Right.
But the word that was missing that also started with H for me was humanity. And that, to me, is a part of the story that is appealing to me. Because I don't necessarily... I want to champion and cheer for the person in the course of their struggle as well, and trying to redeem themselves, and not just once it is safe that I can assess that they have they have reached redemption. And that, to me, is another layer that is nuance, but it is somewhat lost. There is a messiness to life. There's a chaoticness to life. That out of chaos sometimes come order, and you cannot plan for it. There's the only way to get there is to go through it, and to go through it on your time frame, to go through it on your journey. And that is something that also we have, I think, lost in the quest, or misguidedness of everything being very neatly packaged.
Must be good, because Rachel's writing it down. Can I challenge you, though? Now we'll challenge each other. I don't disagree with that, except I'm so cynical of these redemption stories today. They look so packaged and processed by PR people like me in the day. Every time somebody goes to jail, they find religion.
Well, and that's why I asked, what is our responsibility? Because we are sitting in those positions of stewardship in some cases, and to Yves' point, you are that filter. Your decision on the yes or the no could actually have a ripple effect of what goes out there.
Okay, I want to jump in because I'm making notes, but look at Hugh Jackman was on the cover last time, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, I love Hugh Jackman. I think he's an amazing man, and women and men can all look to him and say, yes, like that's a great example. And as a woman, I'm always looking for mentors where I can look up and say, yes, they're doing something right. They're doing something I want to emulate, or I want to aspire to be like that. If you're putting somebody on the cover that's a woman who's broken down and at her lowest point, I don't want to see her on the cover right then. I want to see her after she's gone through it, and she can look back with hindsight of 2020 and say, it was hard. I want her to have the courage and the honesty and like trust to go out there and tell her story, even though it was hard.
So that's to Yves' point about the yes or the no and when.
It's when.
That's an interesting observation, and whether it holds true based on we said this is not a gender characteristic, but whether it holds true about society's willingness to receive that message, if that message changes depending on whether it's a man or a woman who's basically.
So you don't want to see Heather Locklear now. You want to see her when hopefully she gets her act together.
Again? She's going through this again?
Yeah, I don't think that, first of all, I'm not sure if she's going to get her act together. But
Yeah.
let's take somebody that's even more topical than her,
Yeah.
Roseanne Barr.
Roseanne Barr. There.
So all of a
Yeah.
sudden now, ABC, which I think, well, I would hope anyway, acted in a way that showed a lot of courage. I mean, that was the #1 show, which ABC had never had for the last 8 years.
Number one show.
Yep.
Didn't have a #1 show to take that off the air, and then they kind of cheated themselves a little bit by recreating a new show without her in the picture. So I'll have my my caveat with that, but
But they didn't hesitate when it came out. They acted swiftly and
yeah,
many people
I think
correctly.
that's what I'm talking about. I think that we all have a choice. I mean, I'm certainly not the only person that answers for those covers. Doug's in that conversation, and that's why you have an editorial board that you can bounce ideas. I can be the one thing. I was a pretty strict no until you brought the idea of humanity. Then I'm like, okay, well now he's making a point. Yeah, those are the stories. If we're going to show humanity, then I think that that's something that I want to kind of have a conversation with. And I can be, and by the way, I can be convinced. It's not like I'm going to change my principles, but if somebody can make an argument that makes sense to me, I can say, okay, now here's what.
And I'll meet you halfway, Eve, on
Right.
this one too, right? Because it's not so much the fact that I'm saying that is the moment in time in which you captured them in print.
Right.
What I'm saying is that aspect of their story should be given content.
Yeah.
Versus just glossed over from the start and the struggle to the success and the thing. It's that journey of redemption sometimes that we basically just allocate I don't know 2 sentences to.
Yeah. I think the criteria is also, because I think that if we only want perfect people, whether it's Nobleman or any other publication.
It's dangerous territory you're entering.
Well, no, but seriously, I mean, if we're going to find perfect people, it's going to be a very short magazine, because the last one that I know was perfect was Jesus Christ, and that's about it. That's my only little.
Red's pretty close.
He's
pretty close.
Red is a close third.
Now I know I did not send you another check.
Oh, my goodness.
But what I'm saying is that I think that if the criteria is going to be perfect people who act perfectly at all times, and once again, we don't know those people. There's some people that we've shot and they've been in the magazine that you meet in person and you're like, oh my God, really? But if that's a criteria, then
And we're
going to
put that in the show notes, right? We're going to list those
right,
people.
exactly. Yeah, please. Then I'm going to have to find a job the following day. But
We got about 10 minutes left, and I just want to
Go ahead.
focus on one last question that maybe you can help answer. And this is I'm start with a strange quote. Years ago, one of the Supreme Court justices said, I don't know how to define pornography, but I know what it is when I see it. Is nobility the same kind of ephemeral
I can
thing
define nobility, but I know it
when I see it?
I think you do.
Or can you define it for us here today?
Yeah, I think that the one thing that we talked, a little bit before is a nobleman or a noblewoman is somebody that shows up when the chips are down and when things don't go well. The quote that I use is that, at 3 a.m, if you're in a problem, if I call you, I don't want you to tell me that, well, it's 3 a.m. and I don't have any clothing, my gas doesn't have, my car doesn't have any gas. The only thing I want to hear is that, let me get you. And I think that's
I'm on my way.
I'm on my way. And I think that, obviously the concept of nobility is a lot larger and broader than that. But to me, in my book, A Noble Man, and once again, we talked about the fact that doesn't have to be a CEO. It could be, any sort of profession, go from the most blue collar to the ultimate, position in life. I think a nobleman is what you have inside. It's your character, it's your integrity, it's your humility, it's your humanity, it's all those things. And I think that, you can see it. You talk to somebody for 5 minutes and you get it.
That may be the most profound definition of nobility I've ever heard. I'm on my way. That's what we picture the Errol Flynn. Nothing's going to stop him. He's always going to come rescue you or rescue the damsel in distress. I never thought of it that way.
Did you have something you were going to say?
Well, you asked a question earlier, and Eve answered it, and I didn't, and so I wanted to circle
Yes,
back to that
yeah.
because about our responsibility. And I've built my whole career and my whole team and all of my clients around the fact that you can't teach someone to care. And it's the value of the relationships and the caring, and it's every little detail from knowing, anniversaries and birthdays and showing up to, yoga class with your clients or their kid's softball game. But you can't teach someone to go that extra mile. My partner at Gigasavvy, Kyle, has called it the soft touch. And I think that goes a long way in terms of just, being true to yourself and to your team.
I think internally we all have that flame. I think sometimes it's subdued. Sometimes it needs to be fanned.
Sometimes it's snuffed out.
It's snuffed out. I will share one thing that I came across being on the board of the San Clemente Historical Society. There used to be, it's still there. It's referred to locally as the Miramar Theater. At one point, the Miramar Theater was going to be called, and there was a rendering by the architect. This was a building that was built in 1938. It was Spanish style. It actually echoes sort of the massing of castles in La Mancha, Spain, which is the south of Spain, because a lot of architecture in San Clemente initiated from the exposition in Balboa Park and Spanish south of Spain architecture and Moorish arches. So it has a tower, it has a massive building, and there was on the tower at one point in the rendering of the architect, it's the name of the movie theater was going to be called El Hidalgo. Okay, El Hidalgo. So I didn't see any photos with that name on it after that rendering, and it was a really pixelated rendering, and so I was on a quest. And I looked and I found, and the more I researched it, this is a building that was built in 1938. So if you remember 1938, we had a recession. We were coming out of coming out of the Depression,
Right.
okay? And these were towns that really needed inspiration. They needed something they could hold on to, something they could feel like basically was for a brighter future. And here was a building that was going to be a movie theater, air conditioning, I don't know, 50 cents for a loge seating inside. It was going to play all the movies. It was cutting edge acoustics. And it was called El Hidalgo. And when you look at the El Hidalgo, you realize that the El Hidalgo stands for the nobility. And yet it is not just the nobility of Spain, with the heraldry and the stuff. No. El Hidalgo is the nobility that stems from the common person. It is the people that have achieved a level of nobility recognition, but that are of the people, from the people. So this was the people's house that was built in 1938 in San Clemente. And till today, anything that has not been able to be reached, there are shields and battle axes in between the rafters of every area that was not been able to be reached in this building that's still standing today. And so here was an example that celebrated the nobility of the common man, and not just basically the shiny armor knight that's walking in on a beautiful horse with the mane that's basically blowing in the wind. I really love the fact that you have this part of the direction and the inspiration, the creative energy that's behind Nobleman. And I really honestly, truly believe that if we all try to put a little bit more of that stuff out there, be it in publications or just interaction with other people, relationship building, that's going to resonate with a lot of people that are very hungry for authenticity today in a world that is overly curated.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Yves was a little too humble to
he's a nobleman, of course.
To give his own definition of nobility. Instead, he told a great story. I just want to read from the About Us page on Nobleman Magazine, because I think it captures some of what we were talking about here today. It says, the nobleman is, I'm paraphrasing here, the leading man who is confident, capable, and truly appreciates the finer things in life. And here's the key part. He's not one to beat his own chest. The nobleman is humble, despite his great achievements, and always eager to discover and learn more. I think that says it all.
See, it's interesting, right? Because we all know that there's more content on that page, and yet that is what what resonated with Paul.
That's
right?
what I saw.
So thank you both for being here.
That's our
I
pleasure.
really appreciate the exchange, and I think anybody who's listening, how do they get hold of you guys if anybody has any questions or?
You can reach me via email at Yves, Y-V-E-S, at noblemanmagazine.com.
Okay.
It's an easy
And noblemanmagazine.com is the domain. It's
Correct.
pretty nice. There's some good stuff. I want to give a shout out to an event taking place tonight for Stark, our friends at Stark in Irvine, the Stark After Dark. and anybody who's going to be there.
Fantastic event.
It's going to be a fantastic event. I think all three of us are probably going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
And
Wouldn't miss
we'll
it.
look forward to seeing that. And how do they get hold of you, Rachel?
You can go to gigasavvy.com is our website, and you can email me, rachel@gigasavvy.com, or on Instagram, rachelswoboda.oc.
And Gigasavvy is spelled Gigasavvy. Yeah.
And
The only reason I'm asking because
There you
I
go.
made a couple of mistakes. And it's right there.
and how
Thank
do we
you.
spell-
I appreciate the support.
how do we
Oh,
spell Svoboda?
Really?
Well, it seems obvious to me, but there might be some.
Yeah.
Just like it sounds. It's like Roberts, you know.
It's just that easy. I'll do it the way my mom does it. S as in Sam, V as in Victor, O, B as in, wait, S V O B
Not so easy. When we put you on the hot seat here.
D A.
There you go.
Okay.
You'll figure it out.
Thank you. Really, I mean, this show is really a journey, and I appreciate you guys taking that one with me today because I think it's super important. More of us should be on it.
Thank you.
So go out there, everybody, and find your own quest for the better.
You have been listening to the Raad Life Radio Show with your host and age explorer, Rod Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.
Zuant is a new generation.